Good morning. I'm Anthony Coghill. I'm the City Council representative for the 4th District, and this is a reconvening of our budget hearings. So I want to start just by saying, it's Public Works that's in front of us today. And before I turn it over to Director Urbanek, I just want to say a couple things to our director. Director, you've been fantastic through this. You're the unsung hero through all these hearings. You sit in on everyone. You really earn your money over these 6 or 8 or 12 weeks, whatever it seems like. So I just want to recognize you and your office, not only for attending these, but many times I'll ask questions during these meetings, and your office, I don't even ask for a response, but your office is getting back to me with responses. So I just wanted to recognize your professionalism and what you do at your job. And I will now turn it over to you to give us the summary as to, the budget goes. And then after that, if you turn it back to me, and then we'll go to the director. Okay.
Well, I thank you so much. I appreciate the comments. I couldn't do any of this without our budget manager, Mike Strelick, who's been hard at work helping to prepare all this information for us. We're talking about the Department of Public Works today. The mission of the Department of Public Works is to maintain the city's asset related to parks, facilities, rehabilitating public structures, provide support to other departments, administer a solid waste and recycling system that promotes a litter-free environment, and ensure public safety responding to weather-related events. The Department of Public Works is divided into 4 separate bureaus. First is the Bureau of Administration, which is responsible for the fiscal end, for permits, for the warehouse, and also management of the Forestry Division. The next is the Operations Bureau, which does all the other work for the streets and parks maintenance. Then we have the under that, as well as the Heavy Equipment Division, responsible for the repair and preventive maintenance for the 1,000 plus pieces of equipment throughout the city. And then, of course, there's the Environmental Services Bureau, which has refuse and recycling. And then there's the Facilities Division, which takes care of all the city-owned buildings and facilities. Now let me switch to the fiscal end, and please mind my slowness this morning. Had a power outage this morning and sort of set me back. The Department of Public Works as a whole, for all the bureaus, the budget is $52,027,000. That's a decrease of what was anticipated in the 2025 year plan of $12,689,000. That's a decrease of 19.6%. The Department of Public Works generates a number of general fund revenues, which is important to us. The largest of which is the Liquid Fuels Fund of over $4 million projected for this year. There's a reimbursement from RAD. There's picnic and ball field permits of about $400,000. Public Works, different permits, $38,000. That's a reduction there for this year. Maintenance revenues of $600,000. It's an equalization payment for the city county building from the county. Refuse dumpster permit fees, $79,000. Temporary refuse dumpster fees, $126,000. Commonwealth recycling grant is $315,000. And then we're reimbursed for doing Wilkinsburg's trash collection. And that's $952,000, and that's by contract. The reductions in the Bureau of Administration this year, total budget is $914,000. That's a decrease of $241,000, or approximately 21%. Total full-time positions are 12. Reductions in the first 6 months of the year, both payroll technician positions are eliminated. One eliminated January 1st, the second upon the incumbent employee moving into a new position after 2 months. Non-salary expenditures reduced by $38,000. or 70%, including maintenance for streetlights, $25,000 eliminated. Workforce training cut in half from 12,000 to 6,000. Office equipment and supplies cut by $20,000 or 67%. Anticipated workforce reductions are $98,000 based on average salary and benefits. That's 2 or 3 positions. Next, I'll switch to environmental services. The total budget for environmental services out of that 52 million is $16,161,000. That's a decrease of what was anticipated in the 5-year plan of $2.4 million or 13.4%. Total full-time positions, 178. That's a reduction of 15 positions. In the first 6 months of the year, truck driver Bs is reduced from 115 to 100. Non-salary expenditures reduced $59,000. Vacancy allowance is increased by $218,000. That's the equivalent of reducing the budget by 5 employees. And this is without the 7/1 July 1st workforce reduction. That workforce reduction will be $1,055,000 based on an average of salaries and benefits of the 178 full-time position. That equals the elimination of 36 employees. Environmental Services also has a capital acquisition plan that we spoke about during the ELA. The plans for 2 refuse packers at a cost of $772,000 and 1 recycling packer, the cost of $386,000. The Bureau has a single trust fund, the Solid Waste Trust Fund. Due to the collapse of the recycling market, this fund has virtually been eliminated. To date, we have collected $18,000. There is 0 anticipated revenues in 2021. Next, we'll do operations. Total operation budget of that 52 million is $18,886,000. That's a decrease of what was anticipated in last year's 5-year plan for 2020 of $5,254,000, 22%. Total full-time positions, 247. That's a reduction of 23. Reductions for the first 6 months of the year. Elimination of seasonal laborers, $331,000 or equivalent of 8 full-time positions. Elimination of 12 of 118 laborers. Elimination of 1 of 5 skilled laborers. Elimination of 6 of 44 truck drivers. Elimination of 1 of 8 truck drivers, special operators. Elimination of 1 of 12 heavy equipment operators. Elimination of 1 of 2 equipment repair specialists, elimination of both Inspector 1 positions. Non-salary expenditures are reduced by $1,275,000 or 34%. The Clean Pittsburgh Commission, $55,000 has been eliminated. I think that's the total amount. The City Cuts Program, $300,000 has also been eliminated. Maintenance reduced by $50,000. This affects Freedom Corner and Field Turf at Riverview and Shenley. Landscaping and tree removal has been reduced by $234,000, 65%. Materials reduced by $125,000, that's 27%. This line item houses minor capital projects that used to be housed in the capital budget. Tools reduced by $25,000. Land and buildings, $105,000 eliminated. This will affect the 3rd Division building rent. Transportation and mileage reimbursement reduced by $38,000 or 72%. Anticipated in this budget for the July 1st workforce reduction, a reduction of $1,685,000 based on the average salary and benefits. That equals the elimination of 51 employees. Capital equipment acquisition, the LA draft plan, spoke of 1 forestry bucket truck, cost of $200,000, 4 pickups from the Liquid Fuel Trust Fund, $188,000, and continuing payments on the street sweeper leases of $225,000. And with that, we'll go to facilities. Department of Public Works Bureau of Facilities, total budget of that $52 million is $16,064,000. That's a decrease of what was anticipated in the 5-year plan of $4.7 million or 23%. Total full-time positions, 75. It's a reduction in that first 6 months of 16. Those reductions include the elimination of 1 of 6 associate project managers. There's the swapping of a foreman for a net decrease of 1. There's an addition of a construction foreman and an aquatics foreman. There's elimination of 1 carpentry foreman, eliminating a plumbing maintenance foreman, and elimination of a foreman. There's also going to be the elimination of the custodial work supervisor, eliminate 3 of the 7 electricians, eliminate 4 of the 6 plumbers, eliminate 2 of the 3 bricklayers, eliminate 1 of the 3 iron workers, eliminate 1 of 6 HVAC technicians, eliminate 1 of 4 laborers. Custodian heavy transferred to operations. There's no net reduction there. Non-salary expenditures are reduced by $2,944,000 or 21%. That's including workforce training reduced by $20,000. Maintenance was cut almost in half from $1.7 million to $855,000. Demolition cut by 1/3 from $150,000 to $100,000. Building systems reduced by $70,000. This line item repairs inside facilities such as doors, glass, HVAC, water fountains, etc. Electric reduced by $1.6 million or 30%. The out years of electricity is also reduced by a further $1 million, reflects savings from the street lighting capital project. Materials are reduced by $246,000. This may be offset by the new capital line item for energy efficiency upgrades and restroom upgrades. Now we get to the anticipated workforce reductions of $557,000 if we don't get some funding by July 1st. Based on the average salaries and benefits of the 75 full-time position, that equals the elimination of an additional 15 employees. So with that, I'll go sort of switch pages for a second and go, and if you can follow along here, this is going to be the capital projects. And this is the portion under the Bureau of Facilities. The Bob O'Connor Golf Course, $44,000 in bond funds. Facility improvements, facilities in general, $595,000 in CDBG. $700,000 in bond for a total of $1,295,000. Facility improvements, public safety facilities, $1,821,000 bond funds, that's all. Facility improvements, recreation and senior centers, there's $5 million in bond funds and $7.5 million in matching funds for a total of $12,591,000. Facility improvements regarding sports facilities, $486,000 in bond funds and $411,000 in matching funds for a total of $898,000. Parks reconstruction, $7,453,000 in bond funds. Matching funds are $4.8 million for a total of $12.2 million for parks reconstruction. Parks reconstruction in the regional asset district parks, $978,000 of regional asset district funds. Play area improvements, we have $500,000 in bond slated, and in splash zones, $1.2 million in bond funds. That gives the total CDBG projects, $598,000, total bond being spent, $17,209,000, and matching funds of $13,780,000 for a total facilities budget of $31,585,000. If you look down at the others, and these are located throughout the capital budget, don't want to have to read them unless you would like me to. There are the breakdown of how those funds are being spent in deliverables or individual projects. And with that, that's the budget for Public Works. So I'd like to hand it back to you, Councilman Coghill.
Hey, thank you very much, Director Urbanic, as always. Before we begin, I want to point out what I consider the five-star team that's here today. It's consists of myself, Council Representative of the 4th District, Councilwoman Strasburger, Councilwoman Gross, Councilman Bobby Wilson, and Councilwoman Teresa Kill Smith. I don't believe anybody else is on. If I'm wrong, please chime in. So, okay. And I say that jokingly about five-star, but I mean that sincerely. I do. You know, it really is. And this is not a knock. These are not mandatory for us, these budget hearings. But I got to tell you, I find them very informative. You know, I think they make us a better counselor. Not only do I learn more about the department heads and what's going on there, but often I come in with no questions, but many questions spin off the questions that you all ask. So it seems to be the same faces here. And that's why I deemed you as my five-star, you know, recruits. And I just want to thank you for your commitment for always being here and attending the meetings. I don't think I've been in a meeting where I've not seen one of your faces. So, and I think I've been at 95% of them. So thank you for that. With that, you know, our director here, everybody knows that he will be departing us soon. He's had a long, lustrous career here at the city of Pittsburgh. And I just want to make one quick comment. You know, first of all, Madam President, thank you for putting me up here. I think you put me in the right department. I really do. Much of what Mr. Gable does and what I do in my personal life seems to mirror each other, him on a much larger scale.
I'm just glad to say that I know the crews were really happy to have you there.
Oh, good. Yeah, I love being there. There's many things to tout for Mr. Gable here. But I'll say this, if anybody saw him the other night, you know, before the snowstorm, this is the way I want my director, okay? They got the camera, and many times this time of year, I wake up and I look out and I see snow and I think to myself, I'm glad I'm not Mike Gable today because, you know, he gets a lot of attention this time of year. But the other day he was out there and they said, you know, he said, listen, whatever comes, bring it on. We're ready. I don't know if he's just emboldened by his retirement, but, you know, I love the bravado, director. And, you know, and I think you are feeling that way because you're confident. You're confident in your team. You're confident you have Marcel there and the work crew behind you. So with that, I will turn it over to you, director. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman, and thank you for all the nice compliments. And I hope everybody only had a few complaints about our first winter weather event. There will be more to come, but I think our guys did a great job and our team is very good. And I am very confident about what they can do. With me on this call, virtual meeting today is Marcel Newman, Assistant Director of Administration, and Dave Osterman, who's my Manager of Personnel and Finance. I didn't really want to bring everybody into the fold, but I certainly would like to recognize the other senior management that are involved in all the different bureaus. So Chris Hornstein is the Assistant Director of Facilities. Bill Crean is the Superintendent of Streets. Tom Pollins, Superintendent of Parks. Rick DiCarlo is the Superintendent of Facilities, and Sean Weigel is the Superintendent of Environmental Services. What I usually do in the council hearing is, if you don't mind, if you can indulge me, I like to make a few comments and also go over a few what I think are some pretty neat accomplishments that Public Works has done through the course of 2020. And then we'll be happy to answer any of the questions that from the council members. Is that okay, Councilman Coghill?
That's great.
Okay. Last time, I would like to thank City Council for the opportunity to discuss our 2021 budgets. But before I do that, since this will be my last council budget hearing, I just wanted to express my sincere gratitude to all the current and former council members for providing what I consider a very cordial relationship. You have treated me fairly and with respect, and I appreciate that. And I have tried to meet your needs and those of your constituents where possible and provide the information you have requested as truthfully and as quickly as possible. You know, we continue to incorporate administrative and operational improvements, even with the personnel turnover we have experienced the past 7 years. Since 2014, to the present, we have hired or promoted 460 employees while ending employment with 464 employees. So that's an average of 66 in and 66 out. It's a constant revolving door, basically requiring the need for training, et cetera, because a lot of that historical and institutional knowledge goes out the door. It's not coming back in the door in most cases. Despite the personnel changes, the challenges my senior staff experience each day and what COVID has thrown at us this year, there's much that we are proud of accomplishing, and I will speak to that in a few minutes. We continue to incorporate more technology into our daily operations for the benefit of the employee and the residents of the city of Pittsburgh. More enhanced snowplow tracker, in-cab GPS tablets for snow and ice control operations, software that allows us to view spreader and auger controls to ensure operators are uniformly distributing the icing materials, and the censored litter receptacles. Before I close and we prepare to answer your questions, I'd like to present some of our 2020 statistics and accomplishments. This year, we project to save 8.42% or $2.4 million in salaries, wages, and premium pay. And it is possible that Environmental Services, who has gone negative in premium pay by mid-year for as long as I can remember, may stay on the positive side in 2020. Since I have been director, our operating budget has finished with a positive balance for a total savings of $6.7 million for an average of $1.12 million per year. In our Bureau of Administration, we have secured a green eco landscaping contract and successfully transitioned all parks to be pesticide and chemical fertilizer free. We've secured a contract for grazing goats, an effective means to eliminate invasives and keep personnel away from poison ivy and other harmful plants. We've completely installed fleet telematics solution on all winter operation vehicles and achieved a savings of over $1 million and more in salt in the 2019-2020 winter weather season. We continue to improve the skills and knowledge of our employees, having spent 297 employees to various training opportunities. And I will say that that's continued, not in a face-to-face or an actual site, but they've been participating the same way everybody is now, virtually. So we're still continuing to provide that training to our employees, and they're participating willfully. Our warehouse operations collaborated with the Department of Innovation and Performance to move from a fax and email ordering process to a web-based process, which allows orders to be placed with any device that has access to the internet. And our forestry division hired a utility arborist funded through the Shade Tree Trust Fund for better coordination with all utility companies performing work around the city. In addition to pruning 1,229 trees, removing 1,347 trees, clearing 22,000 lineal feet of right-of-way, removing 148 stumps, root pruning 51 locations, and assisted in the planting of 754 trees with various organizations and partners. In our Bureau of Facilities, the Architecture Division completed 68 construction projects as noted following. Fineview Park, Whiteman Park, and Townsend Park were all completely renovated. Playgrounds at Baxter Park, McKinley Park, Niagara Park, and Arlington Park were renovated, modular structures and/or the safety surface. New spray feature was installed at Nelson Mandela Peace Park. New fitness stations were installed in Highland Park and Frick Park, replacing the old obsolete park course stations that have been there since the 70s. New ADA bleachers were installed at the deck hockey courts at Banksville Park, Paul J. Schiller II Memorial Park, and Brookline Park. New LED ball field lighting was installed at Westwood Park, Chadwick Park, and Phillips Park. New LED parking lot lighting was installed at Brookline Memorial Park. Courts were repaired and resurfaced at Mount Washington Park, Phillips Park, Stratmore Park, Granville Park, Larmer Park, McBride Park, Mellon Park, and Garland Park. New HVAC was installed at the Southside Market House. Roofs at Fire Stations 31 and 8, Medic 10, Police Zone 4/Fire Station 18, the Vietnam Vets Pavilion in Shenley Park, the Rhododendron Shelter in Highland Park, McGee Recreation and Senior Citizen Center, and the Hazelwood Senior Citizen Center. Replaced the access apron at Fire Station 29, and insisted in the Department of Renovation and Performance modernizing data wiring in the city county building, which is currently an ongoing project right now. The Architecture Division completed 16 design projects as noted following: playground replacements for Phillips Park and Arlington Park, Fire Station 19, 23, 26, and 35 renovations, Southside Park Phase 1, and Sheridan Senior Citizen Center and Homewood Senior Citizen Center ADA improvements. Paulson Recreation Center interior improvements, Ammon Recreation Center Rec to Tech improvements, substantial completion of the Robert E. Williams Community Center. The Facilities Division, the trades personnel addressed 2,450 maintenance tasks across all trades and assets, and some noted projects are as followed: completely repainted the interior of the Vietnam Vets Pavilion in Shenley Park, resulting in a $40,000 savings against a bid contractual service doing it. Completed the exterior painting of several pool bathhouses, including the Highland Park Pool Building, saving $60,000 against a bid contractual services performing it. And completely rebuilt the boiler for Police Zone 6, saving $25,000 against a bid contractual services performing it. The Construction Division addressed 638 tasks across all trades and assets. Some noted projects are as follows: they completely rebuilt the steps along Rutledge Street and Guyland Street, complete concrete repair of the Anderson pedestrian bridge in Shenley Park, reconstructed for the umpteenth time the Welcome to Bloomfield sign at Liberty Avenue and the Bloomfield Bridge. I think that thing has been hit 3 times and we've replaced it all times. And installed concrete pads for the ADA bleachers previously identified, and performed laser grading on 11 infields at West Penn, Vanucci, Arlington, Moore, Devlin, Westwood, both fields at Herschel, and 3 fields at Mellon Parks. The operations, street operations, by way of a reorganization bid, we reduced the number of divisions from 6 to 5, but allows us to have an almost equal amount of square miles, street maintenance miles, and personnel in each division. In the past, there was one division that had 15 square miles, while another had less than 3 square miles. We worked with the DPW Bureau of Facilities Architecture Division on what will be the new 4th Division campus on Matthews Avenue, with expected groundbreaking in early 2021. And we rolled out the censored litter receptacle crews for 7 days per week, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., crews addressing litter receptacles meeting a certain fill criteria. And they do it overnight since there is less traffic and it is easier moving throughout the city. The rollout started on October 12th and to date has been hugely successful, but we expect to add some additional resources to meet the expected needs in the spring and summer of 2021. And to touch on that a little bit, since it has gone on since October 12th, we have seen no increase at all in the 311 calls about emptying litter receptacles. Just understand that in the past, we had 25 employees doing that in the past, whereas now we have 6 employees doing it. We're a little bit short based on the numbers, so we're going to increase another crew of 2, and we will probably have a temporary crew in the spring and summer to handle the additional receptacles that will meet a higher fill criteria. So basically 6 employees to 10 doing the work of what was once done by 25 employees. And the use of technology has been a big aid in doing that. In the parks operations, we've converted ball diamonds at Sullivan Park and Moore Park to rectangular fields to accommodate sports played on those types of fields, that being soccer, football, lacrosse, ultimate frisbee, anything that can be played on a rectangular field. Ornamental fences at Moore Park and Emerald View Park, Grandview Avenue were painted electrostatically. And in cooperation with the PA Fish and Boat Commission, continue to have Highland Park Lake Carnegie stocked with catfish, bass, and bluegill to make it a desirable fishing location in the inner city. And environmental services collected 15,000 tons of recycling. Again, this is extrapolated out to the rest of the year since we have another 3 weeks to go. They received $500,000 in grant funding, allowing for the purchase and distribution of recycling bins to city residents, which has been occurring in the last few weeks, and it will continue to occur in 2021, so that everybody will have a blue recycling bin, be able to cooperate in the program. And with the contract with ECS&R, we've collected over 15 tons of things, told hazardous product. That's not everything, but that's a highlight of each of the bureaus and areas of some of the highlights and projects and accomplishments that they're very proud of. I could go on for another hour probably, but in the interest of time, I'll be finished and I'll leave it open for council's questions.
Okay, listen, thank you, Director Gable. All of that, and no mention of the new 4th Public Works Division.
Well, I did. I said that.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I said that. Let me find it here. So I want to read it because I thought you'd say yay to that.
I must have missed it. That's
For
okay.
whatever reason.
I just wanted to make note of it in case you didn't. So
No, I do
go ahead.
the. I did it under the street operations. I said that working with DPW Bureau of Facilities Architecture on what will be the new 4th Division campus
Love that word.
on Avenue with expected groundbreaking in early 2021. So, I call it a campus rather than a division because it's going to be more than just one building. It's going to be a series of buildings that are going to be able to provide us with a lot of assets to take care of the residents in that 4th Division.
Absolutely. I'm going to continue to call it a campus. I love the word. It is true. It is EMT along with Public Works, and it will be a beautiful campus. So with that, Councilman Wilson, if you don't mind, I'm going to do ladies first today. Okay. And if there's any questions, we will start with, how about Councilwoman Erica Strasburger?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Director Gable, Marcel, and your whole team for being here today. I really appreciate you walking us through your accomplishments for 2020, because I know that's only a fraction of what you've done, but even so, it really gives us a sense of everything that you've accomplished. I mean, you do so much, and fortunately, a lot of it's visible. I think a lot of the work that a lot of departments here in the city do is a little invisible. What you do is visible, but we only get to see oftentimes what happens in our own districts or what has a press release, that comes out from the mayor's office. So this really gives me a sense of how hard you all work and everything that you do, and I appreciate it. I guess maybe I'll have other questions after other council members ask theirs, but I'm curious, you mentioned the trash can sensors. I'm excited about the potential for saving money there, or potentially already having saved some money there by freeing up staff time to do other work. Just as a quick aside, it shouldn't go without noting that I did notice how much you were able to save the money, or save the city and taxpayer dollars, by taking a lot of projects in-house rather than bidding them out, and didn't want that to go unsaid either. That we appreciate that in times of fiscal austerity like we're experiencing again now. We really need to pinch pennies, and you do that so well with your talented staff. But I'm curious where then these employees who were part of their responsibility was collecting the commercial street bins, refuse, how they're being redeployed or how they're spending their time, if you can give a sense of what that looks like.
Well, the savings will be seen right now on the street side, because that's where we have done those sensored litter receptacles. And so in that respect, the 5 maintenance divisions basically will be able to put more time to, say, clean and leans, vegetation control, pothole patching, many of the tasks that they've had to, say, curtail over the period of time over the years. So that's, again, looking at roughly, 15 additional personnel to be able to do that. We intend to also do this, we are starting to deploy their sensored litter receptacles into the parks. And it's also a very similar number. It's roughly 25 employees, somewhat of a different parameter than the streets, but still 25 employees performing that task. And if we believe that if we do that in the parks, we're going to see a similar savings in terms of personnel. They're going to be able to go and do other projects that they may not have done in parks for 50 years or 30 years or whatever. So on the streets specifically, it's just simply about The things that come to mind are pothole patching, vegetation control, litter control, those tasks that have really been curtailed for a lot of reasons. And now we can redeploy that personnel to do those tasks, and you should be able to see recognizable differences in the neighborhoods.
That's great. And I know that both pothole patching and clean and leans and vegetation control, but especially I think clean and leans in a lot of neighborhoods are such a priority. So that's helpful to keep in mind. I actually don't have too many questions right now, so I'll turn it over to my colleagues, and I might think of some others for second round. But thank you again. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for all that you do as the chair of this committee, and looking forward to hearing some other questions and comments.
Sure. Thank you, Councilwoman Strasburger. And again, thank you for I think you might have perfect attendance through these budget hearings. So, oh no, okay. So yeah. So with that, I would like to, I guess I will go to Councilwoman Gross if she has anything.
I'm back. Sorry, I had to step away. Thank you, Director Gable. Also, I just want to extend my gratitude and best wishes for your next chapter in life. I hope you get to do all the stuff that you haven't been able to do while you've been our director of parks and of DPW. We really appreciate your time and service.
Thank you.
Yep. So I'm concerned by the job cuts that I see here. I mean, I listened to Director Urbanek go through a couple of dozen job eliminations, maybe more. I wasn't even able to add them all up quickly as I was listening to them. So I don't know if you touched upon that while I stepped away, but I'm a little concerned about that. Where there's a difference between, as you said, talking about the kind of litter can maintenance because you've changed technology versus the kind of cuts we're seeing this year because they just hadn't been filled in time. And so what we heard from the mayor just Monday of this week, it seems like it was last week, but was that his strategy was to just eliminate positions that didn't have someone in them. And I said directly to him that I don't feel that some of the departments can actually handle that, right? Just because the position was temporarily empty doesn't mean that there's too much of a cut in service. And I gave the example of saying, like, we can see how just because of COVID, when one person in DPW is out, that there's a real impact on recycling pickup this last week or garbage pickup and other places, that the crews are already so thin that I didn't think we could afford the elimination of those positions. But it's hard for me to kind of follow through. So I just wanted to get your reaction to places where you think your crew is too thin on in any one of the DPW functions. Thank you.
Well, I would agree that the number of cuts, is rather high, but I'm going to be, I'll jump forward and believe that I'm going to be optimistic that funding is going to come and help us put a lot of that stuff back into the budget. But in all honesty, there's never a good time. We obviously eliminated vacancies rather than actually physically laying anybody off. And we have had a lot of vacancies in the department in all bureaus, some more than others. But let me just go into each bureau and try to see if I can frame it. I think the streets ops is not going to be affected, and for the reason I spoke about the censored litter receptacles, there's a sort of a savings there per se that they probably won't see an impact. Now I will have a little impact on the parks because some of the vacancies there, the labor vacancies, are the actual park laborers. But if there's a good time for someone, to not be in the parks thin down in terms of personnel over the holidays, over the winter and early winter because of in January, because of vacations that they refrain from taking in the summer to say cut the grass and take care of the shelters and take care of the playground. So there's always a kind of a reduced crew when you get back into like November, December, even early part of January. So the laborers did take a little bit of a hit there, but I'm encouraged that we are going to see some funding come back and that'll be restored. The big hit is, on facilities. I mean, it's a lot of trades position, but to be honest with you, we've been holding, some of those vacancies have been held for 2 and 3 years. We are having a very difficult time finding tradespeople. They're not in the city. They're not in the union halls. There's more attraction to other projects outside of the city, particularly like the cracker plant, which have drawn a variety of trades to that particular project. So we've been struggling to try to fill plumbing vacancies for the last 3 years. Electrician, we have a handful of electricians on, but we're still not the full staffing we need to be. Just a lot of trades, and we're dealing with the unions. We've looked at apprenticeship positions, and their apprenticeship positions make more than our regular titled bricklayers and cement
Can you
finishers.
give me 1 or 2 examples of what those dollar amounts are?
I'm going to try to go from memory. I think that our plumbers are somewhere around $20-some an hour. I can try to look up in the budget. And I do know that PWSA had plumbing vacancies also, and they pay $5 more an hour. They weren't getting people. When we approached the union about having an apprenticeship, they said, well, we can give you apprentices, but they'd have to make this amount of money, which in turn was more than our plumber that we have makes.
Some amount more than $25 an hour.
So I'm going to see if I can find it real quick for you, but it's just.
I don't think
haven't
we can
explored all the-
continue to go on like this, right? If, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, but we can't keep going on, especially when we're talking about maintenance. That's what deferred maintenance is, right? And it takes its toll. And we used to do deferred maintenance because, let's say 20 years ago, because we didn't have those money to pay those positions at all. But now we do, and we can make choices to fill them, but it's a competitive environment. I mean, the public understands this, right? Because if anybody out there is trying to get a plumber or electrician to fix their house or contractor, it's tough, right? Because this is kind of widespread that there's just so much construction. And I like to always frame this as, this isn't, in the infrastructure in the region, we're not in a maintenance phase. We're in a building phase. Like, everybody's rebuilding. We had to rebuild our gas lines, our water lines, our roads. There's new construction, and it's a different environment. So in a way, it's not even maintenance. These facility positions, I would even say here, we should think about them as kind of reconstruction and not maintenance.
Sure. Looking up here now, this year, our plumbers make $25.38 an hour. My guess is that PWSA, if theirs is $5 more, they're paying their plumber positions $30. And the union came in and said, well, if you want an apprentice, they're going to make $26 or $27 an hour. So that just doesn't work, paying an apprentice more than your actual full-time person. So there's 2 things we did, and we thought it was beneficial for one title, but not the other. We went over to PLI and asked them for every electrician and plumber that was registered through the city to do work. And then we did an outreach to them, especially to the ones that live in the city, because that's the other obstacle, in a sense, is that you have to live or move. So we actually benefited from we got electricians applications, and they kept coming in, and we actually hired a few more electricians as a result of that. It didn't pan out as well with the plumbers. And again, in the past, we used to go to the union halls, and they'd have people, whatever, sitting there ready to, looking for work. And that just hasn't happened. And that's even true. It's even true as far down as a laborer. We used to go to the union hall and they'd give us 30 names. They hardly give us anybody now. So it's, I don't know why. I can't think that everybody's at the cracker plant, but there are plumbers and there are electricians, but I believe that they're outside of the city in an abundance, and they're already settled in a township, a borough, whatever, and they're not going to pick up their family and
it's too expensive to live in the city. This is
that-
another aspect of our affordability crisis. You know, we've been talking about it.
I haven't lived anywhere.
Forever.
I haven't lived anywhere else, so I can't attest to that.
Right. You're not 20 and trying to buy a house or pay
Yep.
rent, right? You bought your house a long time ago. So that's the difference between then and now, because I hear it from young people who have residency requirements that they're really struggling to find like, you know, they're ready to buy a house, and you know, where do they buy a house? Where they buy a house that isn't kind of falling down at the price point they can afford. So it's some people have words for it now that kind of like, I forget what it is, mid-range is also a point of pressure, right? So we're running into that. It's literally an obstacle, and it's budgetary issue as well. If we're not paying enough that people can afford to live in the city, then they don't live in the city, and we don't have a workforce. So I mean, I think we're really beginning to see that, and I would like to see council kind of take that on more directly. Because I experienced it too when I was at PWSA. It was the same issue. We actually, I voted no, but the board voted to eliminate the residency requirement for some of the upper management because they could not fill those positions at the amount that we were paying. So it's a different moment that where there was a lot of affordable housing in the city 20, 30 years ago, especially. And guess what? The housing is, you're competing against very well paid, thousands of very well paid, robotics engineers, artificial intelligence engineers, software engineers that have really filled up a lot of space, which is good for our tax base, which is good for the region. But what about the middle class and the working class in the city? We really have to tackle both of those things too. So that's a little bit of a digression, but thank you for having those numbers. I think that we can't just keep going on saying like, well, we just, these positions are just going to stay empty. We have to solve this.
Yeah, and we have been trying to find different ways, talking with the unions, doing outreach, going to the unions and going to the trades and technical schools. I mean, we've tried a lot of things, and we'll continue to try things in order to bring those trades positions back in. The only other bureau that I wanted to speak to was with regard to the cuts would be environmental services. And despite it's been a little bit challenging this year for environmental services, but as I spoke to earlier, normally by middle of the year, we have exhausted their premium pay because of overtime opportunities. But I think we're still going to go into the negative, but we have a couple weeks left, but we've never gone this far before, in a positive mode. So that just speaks well to the crews that they've been working shorthanded at times. Only recently have we had some missed rubbish that we in a neighborhood that we've had to pick up the next day. We have supplemented environmental services with both our seasonal employees and actually have temporarily assigned some of our lower senior laborers down there to help them. It's not about driving. It's not about driving the Packers. We need people to load the Packers, and that's what we sent down there. And we're also going to look at that with the new contract coming up. Keeping the truck driver A, truck driver Bs, but we're also looking at refuse collection loader position of maybe having more of them. We just need people able to throw the refuse into the back of the Packer, not necessarily worried about whether they can jump in the cab and move the truck. So, we'll be looking at that through the course of the next year and through contract negotiations. But the idea would be to have a specific number of truck driver As, truck driver Bs, and refuse collection loaders. So you're going out with a sort of a team, an A, a B, and a loader on their solid waste route, and an A or a B with a loader doing the recycling. So, environmental services will take on a different look down the road. It's not going to be the numbers it's been in the past. But again, the crews have done a marvelous job considering all the issues that we've had recently with COVID and through March. We've not been as bad as public safety and departments, but environmental services has had a few outbreaks recently, but we've supplemented them with other DPW personnel, and we're here to work as a team.
I appreciate that. Honestly, I do. It's really, it's a really great department, especially environmental services. And everybody, I just want to call attention to it so the public really appreciates how much nicer it is to live in your neighborhood when you know the garbage is going to get picked up, right? And in cities where that function falls apart, it's kind of drags everything else down, right? It's just, not a great place to live when the garbage isn't getting picked up. So we all thank you. Can I ask one more
But-
question, Mr. Chair? Do you mind if I take a little more time? I have worked for a couple of years I've got a lot of constituent interest in zero waste. The city has its own zero waste plan. And I've got a lot of citizens trying to figure out kind of how to even take their own steps in their own neighborhood. We've talked about composting. I can't imagine, that we have city budget to shift to municipal composting, but some places have that. It reduces, as I've said before in other budget hearings, it reduces the tonnage. So it can reduce the amount of rubbish or waste that is being hauled all the way out to the landfills, which is not just good for, the planet, but it's good for the fuel expenditures that we have, the amount of crews that you would need. So how do we keep waste out of our waste stream? It's really the goal. And so I just wanted I know that you all have worked a bit on it, and I just wanted to give you a chance to tell us kind of where do you think, how should we get started? If you've given it any thought.
Okay, I would, if I can, I'd like to, Marcel, do you want to handle that since it's an environmental services for what you might know about zero waste?
Hi, sure. So yes, we have looked into it. We did stall a little bit due to COVID, just trying to, get our crews to do some of the basic work that we have right now. But we were looking into locations, and I think that is the primary aspect, is to figure out what locations and how do we transport it, and how do we get the public to participate. So it's still ongoing. We don't have a plan yet, but it's something that we've been investigating and continue to do so.
If we take baby steps, the Heth Community Garden really, really wants some compost bins. We didn't get them built this year. There's probably policies that we could work on so that they could have not just the garden waste, but actually like the desire is to bring kitchen waste, right, to drop off sites like that. I think Stanton Garden is probably already doing that. And yeah, so,
There are
right.
a couple of community gardens that have their own composting sites. But
I'm telling you, at my house, I have one bin that's as big as your like curbside garbage can that I've had for 20 years. That's kind of on a pedestal that's busted. And then I bought another one that's a barrel that sits more on the ground and you can roll it across. They're both full. So now I've got my kids like digging holes in my backyard for us to put the compost in. And then you cover it up so you make sure you don't have any rodents or unwelcome guests. We do a lot. We just compost a lot, and you can really significantly see this, that we have fewer trash bags, even though I've got 2 kids, a husband, and 2 dogs in the house. So and I have a lot of constituent interest, a lot of resident interest in doing this. There's committees about how to do, composting. And I think that this is an opportunity where we can at least start, like, as you said, like with the people who already want to do it, instead of training the people who don't want to do it yet, right? Kind of get the ball rolling, and spread that kind of interest throughout the neighborhood. So I really look forward to doing that. I think we could get some installations in by snow melt, right? By spring. And let me not forget to thank you both for your willingness to put up with my city farms projects this year. I hope you noticed the kind of photos that I shared with council a few weeks ago. I'll send them to you, where especially the West Penn Park in Polish Hill were the first to get off and running. 2 Polish Hill residents who have previously professionally farmed. They had grids and spreadsheets and plans of harvesting and planting, and it was beautiful. They're just executed it impressively. I was so impressed by them. They had this beautiful bounty off these tiny, really relatively tiny areas, and they call themselves the West Bend Community Farm. They have an Instagram account you can find if you want to follow them. And we're really looking to continue that into the spring. In fact, we might be talking about hoop houses and things like that so they can get their spring planting started early. I have the same energy at Spirit Garden. I have the same energy at Duncan Park. And I think those places are places where we could probably do some composting as well. So I really want to thank you. It was a crazy time. And I know I was a little bit, adamant and urgent about getting those things in, because planting season is planting season in Pittsburgh. We don't have a super long growing season, and everybody was working from home, and it was COVID, and DPW really stepped up, and I know the residents really appreciate it. And if I haven't shared all their thank you letters with you, I'll be sure to forward them. They're very excited about the spring, so we can do both of those things. I will, just remind you that part of the benefit of doing zero waste is that we can reduce, as I said, the load. Some municipalities have, when they've done 100% municipal compost, have reduced their loads to the landfills by half. 50% is huge. I know we disagree about what to do with that. The fleet, the workers deserve better. The budget deserves better than our old haulers. I forget the technical name for the garbage trucks. But the goal, I think, is to make sure that we can do that upgrade in that fleet, and do it, just have not be costing the budget so much with our loads to the landfill and with the inefficient diesel fleet that we're running. But I could stop there, Mr. Chair. I think I've covered all my questions. Thank you for being able to answer these questions. And I look forward to working with you next year. And Director Gable, thank you for all your service.
Thank you. If I could just provide a few additional responses. The vehicles at environmental are called packers, or refuse packers, and composting. We had looked at that many years back, looking for a reasonable size site, because as you know, you got to create the windrows and turn it over a lot, and so it's not necessarily about personnel. A few number of people can handle it, and having a heavy equipment operator maybe run a piece of equipment that kind of constantly turns the windrows over. So it's been looked at before. It's just, where in the city is it? It's almost like, where do you put a public works division? Where does somebody want a public works division? Where does somebody want to compost, right? So if there's some place out there large enough, it doesn't have to be, as big as a ball field, maybe it does, but if there's a place like that, we would certainly entertain where we could do the composting. And I will tell you that maybe I should have emphasized, I know I said this in the past, and I don't have the current figures for 2020, but the amount of solid waste that we've been taking to the landfill, I can say it was like 10, 15 years ago, was as high as 130,000 tons. And I'm willing to guess that with this year, we're probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood. We were somewhere in the mid 80s. Dave, I don't know if you know that figure or not, but we were somewhere around 85,000 tons, which is that's a really significant decrease. So that's an emphasis that the residents of the city are trying to do other things. I can't say that our recycling has increased by the same amount, but recycling has gone up also.
Fascinating.
But
because
the
it
residents
seems like yeah. It's
I think that some of that is the increase in recycling. Some of it is the loss of city residency. But overall, the tonnage is significantly reduced from, when I first came to Public Works 25 years ago.
The big multi-units is not in your tonnage though, right? So just hypothetically, not that this is really the way it happened, but if you had like 5,000 city residents leave their houses and move into a big apartment buildings in the Strip District, that tonnage from those people is now private dumpster services that isn't part of our tonnage.
That would be
I
correct.
believe you're
Yes.
correct. I believe.
Yeah. Again, not the way that actually happened, but we do have a shift of population. And we'll be able to see in the next census, I think, more clearly how many people are living in those multi-units. We could probably figure it out some other way, but the census will also be capturing it. So fascinating. Yeah, we'd like to see that number continue to go down. Again, it saves us money, it saves the planet, and it saves a lot of money on trucks and fuels and crews. So it's wonderful. Thank you for having those numbers. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gross. And as usual, you bring up some very good points, which spawn questions from me. So I'm going to hold off on those, but I did want to make one point very clear. And Director Gable and Director Ricks and I have talked about this offline. The lack of the trades is almost at a crisis stage for us here in the city of Pittsburgh. And it really stems from the fact that we can't hire outside the city of Pittsburgh. I will tell you personally, I believe not only is it the pay scale, that's first and foremost, always with any job, I believe. It's the pay scale, but it's also, people live in the city of Pittsburgh, contractors, we're dense. We have so much work around us. I myself, I don't travel more than 5 miles from my shop. But people live in Newcastle and, outside the city of Pittsburgh who would love to have these jobs that we can't offer them to at this point. So that really needs to change. When we're talking about having one plumber and, your facility, your concession stand goes down at your ballpark and they need water to cook and to serve people. It's really, I feel, at a crisis stage. The trades, they make better money at the trades. That's why they're not coming to the city of Pittsburgh. It's just the bare fact of it. But so I just wanted to make that clear. Director Gable, I'm going to continue working on that. That needs to change. I hope to work with this council and finding out what we need to do to change that. So, and I also want to say, Councilman Wilson, he had a ribbon cutting. So he had to leave. He said he will catch up with you offline with the questions he had. And I would like now to turn it over to our Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman Coghill. Great meeting. Thank you, Director Gable, and to your team for being here. And thank you for your service for many years to the city of Pittsburgh. You have just been amazing to work with. And when I first came in, when you first came in, I was a little bit nervous how our relationship was going to go, but you've been nothing but a gentleman and a very professional throughout the whole time. And I'm just very thankful for the work that you've done. So thank you very much for your service. With that said, there's a couple things I want to clarify. The Clean and Lean program, it's my understanding, was not cut at all. There was no cuts to the Clean and Lean. In fact, we're talking about increasing that and hiring more laborers if we get the help from the federal government. So I want to make sure that that's clear. And the city cuts program, we are supposed to be putting an amendment forward, but I think that I had a conversation with Chief of Staff Gilman, that maybe we should try to do that as a volunteer basis until we get some help from the federal government, and then do that again. I said it was something that was suggested a while back from other council members, and so I said maybe it's something we could do. And then I just do want to say I hear a lot of the budget cuts. I hear a lot of things, and we do have the park tax on the table. If council wants to vote that in, and if we're so concerned about all the cuts, we could certainly work on that, and that's available for us. And we can make sure that we're filling some positions with that and whatever we're using for DPW, because it's my understanding that's supposed to go to DPW and only a small percent to the Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy or whatever group that they choose. But I just want to say I think that's still a concern. I know people are still discussing it, but I do believe that they have enough votes to move that forward if they wanted to, and if other members wanted to join, if those are concerns, that's an avenue you can explore. But I do want to say that you've done a lot of work. It was good hearing you rattle off some of the things you've done, and you actually skipped some of them. I know that you've done in our district. It was so good to hear District 2 across the board so many times. But I do have some concerns, and I do want to say this first of all, with the trades. I agree with you, Councilman Coghill, that part of it is that we do not have enough people here within the city of Pittsburgh. But I think what we ought to be doing, instead of encouraging people from outside the city to come in, we ought to be preparing our residents within the city of Pittsburgh for those jobs. And so that way we're helping our local residents that live here obtain employment. And it would just be so much help, so beneficial for so many other ways. And we do have programs in the city, and the trades are in our district. Between Councilman Coghill and myself, most of them are in our district. And I think that, well, he claims it's his district and they claim him. So, but so I would just say, I think that what we ought to do is do more incentives in working with people. And I know we have the plumbers building in our district, and they're non-union. So what I'd like to see is if we worked with them to get people into the city of Pittsburgh, then they would become members of the union. And I don't know how the union feels about that. So maybe that's a conversation we have to have with them. But I also want to say that I do have some concerns with the morale within the department. I think a lot of the technology, even though it's great and it has come in handy, and it actually just helped me this week with an issue to track down why a street wasn't done, and it was because somebody didn't follow the route and the technology and whatever. So it was helpful to figure out so that it's not repeated. I think that there's a lot of concern amongst the rank and file with your employees about how they feel devalued and how they feel like they're being tracked and, almost spied on and not appreciated. And I mean, to me, I love the technology. I love that, I don't like the idea that it's replacing employees and people. I think that, that's a dangerous road to tread. And I think that once, we should be looking at Seneca Valley and what they're going through right now. I think they lost over 500 companies, tech companies, and people are starting to, feel the unemployment. And so I think that we've got to not only learn from others, the mistakes of others, but I think we've got to put more value on people than we do on machinery and technology. And I think that there's a place, and I think there's some benefit to it, but I think it's how we use it that matters. And so I just wanted to make sure that I say that I think that our employees are some of the best. I mean, we have some really amazing employees that really work really hard. And I think if they feel valued, they work twice as hard. And, that's true of a lot of people, though. That's true of almost every field. You'll see study after study where people say that if people feel valued, they usually give back more. And so I want to make sure that we're not forgetting that while we're doing all this technology, that there are real people behind this with families that really want to feel valued too. And I don't know what your thoughts are on the technology. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that? Director?
I think he froze up.
Oh, did he?
Well,
Okay.
Councilwoman, a little bit, but I think I understand most of. So with regard to the technology, nobody watching or looking at, we look at the technology for the GPS, for the snow and ice control, or the litter receptacles as a means to defend our employees. We've used it to defend our employees in the way that, when people complained that a street wasn't done, we could get on there and say, yeah, we had a truck down that street at 9:30 last night. So we've defended our employees, but yes, we have used it when there's been accusations that somebody's done something improper. But nobody's sitting there watching the computer and seeing where people are going. And with regard to the snow and ice control program, the drivers, the people who are going to be driving the routes, we have what I've been told is they've embraced it, that they've actually got to work with it, drive the routes, make sure that their little tweaks got taken care of, like back up a hill versus coming down a hill. Their input is important in the development of these routes. So as far as I've been told, the GPS with regards to snow and ice control operations is that the truck drivers and the employees have embraced it. And like a lot, and the foreman and supervisor like the technology for what they can do in terms of issuing out the routes and the things that the way they can communicate with each of the employees on the truck. So the technology is good. As I said, we're not sitting here looking at the computer, seeing who's working, who's not working. So
We're not using it for
that's
discipline.
being said, that's not.
So can I just be clear? You're not using it for discipline. Is that correct? Deputy Director Newman, can you answer that?
Sure. So as per union contract, we
I will
can,
admit, for instance, Get-Go and knocked the light pole down, and we had to investigate that and found out who the employee was, and we disciplined them, but nobody was.
Director, you're freezing.
Deciding that,
Director, your frame
you know,
keeps
this guy's
freezing.
driving against an employee.
Director, your frame keeps freezing, so we're going to ask Director
I don't
Newman.
know, I think I'm.
You might turn off your camera and we might be able to hear you better, Director Gable.
Is that better?
Oh, yeah, that's much better.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure what
We're
I'll
both
step
less
back.
efficient.
Yeah, we're not. You can hear me now, okay?
Yes, thank you.
So as I said, nobody's sitting here looking at the computer to see who we can discipline. That's not the case. When we are given a reasonable accusation against an employee, we have to investigate that. And that means sometimes we got to go to the GPS data. For instance, there was an employee who took out a light pole in a Get-Go parking lot. We had to validate that with the GPS data. So there are cases where we have disciplined employees with that, and there's places where we have defended the employees for false accusations. So it's been good or bad, but nobody's sitting here running data to see if this employee is driving here or there or anywhere. It's
But I
only
do
when
wanna
something's
say-
brought up by 311 or OMI.
I do want to say,
Go ahead.
Director, when we voted for that technology, we specifically asked if it would be used for discipline, and we were told definitely not. So I do want to make sure I mention that. So I would hope that it's not being used for a way that it was our understanding it would not be. Because I don't think any council member would want that. I think, and I do understand that you use it for helping the employees. And I do understand there was a case where an employee was accused of speeding and somebody was yelling and having it fit and saying all kinds of, and then they showed on the GPS that he was going 5 miles an hour. It wasn't at all speeding, or so they could prove that. So that was helpful to that employee at the time. But so I do understand that there's value to it. I do understand it's a good way to find out whether a street was done or not done. To make sure the receptacles are being emptied. I do understand there's some value to it. I just don't want to lose the importance, and I don't want our employees to feel devalued, and I don't want to lose the importance of that human touch and the relevance of having people doing the work and not always computers replacing them and taking over some of their jobs and for them to be disciplined with it. I just don't think it's fair. Well, I think a lot of people have been here for a lot of years. They're not even used to technology, it's even log on to a computer. And that, not saying that, that is an excuse to let it go forever, but I think we got to make sure that we're constantly training and embracing it in ways that they feel comfortable too. Chairperson,
Thank you.
thank you, Director. Thank you for everything you do. I hope you enjoy fishing on your next chapter in your life. And Chairperson, are we doing Domi?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Domi's next week.
Domi's next week. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Madam President. And, you do hit on a really important point. And notice I don't ask if these council members have questions because they always come loaded with curiosity and questions. So I expected that. My 5-star crew just shined today. I really appreciate that. But as to what you said about, going outside the city for trades, I would love to see, and I do plan to have a job fair at some point for inner city, kids, and create a pipeline as to where, let them know that they can make a living other than just sitting behind a computer, and when you're in such high demand, you set your own price. So, you can make a good living at it as well. So I do plan to explore that. I hope, providing we get the vaccine and everybody's able to get together someday soon, it's very, very important, to create that pipeline. I'd love to do that, Madam President, right here in our city, teach our kids the trades. And again, they can live here and they can work here as well. The other thing I wanted to say was, Councilwoman Gross brought up city farms, which, you know, I'm not going to delve into too much. But as a final act, Director Gable, I would love for you to say, yes, that access road on the Brookline farm can be done. Can you do that for me? We'll talk about it, you know, but I wanted to thank you and Marcel for actually being at the, you know, meeting, the outdoor meeting that we had. But that's really one of the very few obstacles I feel I have there. And I do understand your concerns, but I'm hoping as a final act, you come in and say, yes, that absolutely could be done. Any comment on that?
Well, I don't want to be considered an obstacle, but I certainly approve it if you can tell me how the car goes from the parking lot back to the farm, and that everybody that's might interact with that is all safety measures have been put in place. I haven't heard anything yet, so I don't know.
No,
what's
you know,
developed
we really,
yet, so.
you know, we really haven't got that far. I'll tell you the truth. I'm really looking to secure funding and cross that bridge when we come to it. But, you know, it seems pretty simple. First of all, there's not going to be a lot of trucks. You know, I don't envision, you know, big vehicles coming back and forth. Maybe at first with the development phase, but eventually, you know, it's a guardrail at 5 miles an hour, you know, and we just permit them to go in and out while somebody doesn't have the permit for the park. To put it, you know, my simple way. I have it all figured out, of course, but no, we, you know, hopefully we can sit down and talk about that before your departure and come up with a realistic way as to, you know, an acceptable way, safe way that we can do that. So,
Okay.
yep. Now, any other members want to follow up or other questions? Okay, well, seeing none, I just have a few announcements. I know that the Parks and Recreation hearing will be this afternoon, chaired by Councilman Burgess. That's at 1:30. And I believe the Community Health and Safety is also immediately following, if I believe, and not quite sure what time, but that will be chaired by Councilman Lavelle. And in parting, I just want to say again, Director Gable, it's an honor to chair your final hearing. And I look forward to working with Marcel and the people under you, which I have complete confidence in. Not that you're not a huge loss, but I know you run deep. I know the department has many leadership. And I did want to acknowledge my two supervisors, John McClory and Jeff Cook, you know, and they're just an example of the many people behind you. But they're flawless, you know. Most of the time it doesn't get to you because they handle it for me. So with that, you know, I guess what do I have to do? I guess motion for recess, right? So I'd like to Can I get
Just one other thing before.
Okay.
Remember that in the public school system years ago, the trade and technical schools were here.
Connolly, yes.
You know, everybody took shop. So Connolly or WAC, what was the one down by 40th Street? There was one down at Washington something.
Yep.
So those
Washington,
technical
yeah, the
schools,
Washington Washington Vocational. So it's a boutique hotel now.
so those schools were a part of the inner city, and they, you know, they're not here anymore. And that was a part of the, you know, the children's education through the years. So that's just another avenue of trying to train them, and hopefully not train them and send them out to, you know, work somewhere else other than in the city. So we'll keep our fingers crossed.
That's a good point. My grandfather went to Connolly as a carpenter. You know, there's, again, this is really an avenue for inner city kids who may not have the means to go to college, like myself, to go out and make a nice living. I mean, again, when there's that type of demand for the work that you do, you know, it's especially if you're self-employed, you set your own price. So I just want to, you know, and I do plan to talk to other members that I hope to bring in for, say, an annual job fair to help, you know, at the very least, get kids interested in that type of work and let them know, you know, there's a whole new field out there, or a whole other field that people are making a lot of money at, and want to open it up to them. So with that, I guess I will accept a motion to recess from somebody.
Motion to recess.
Second.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, folks.